one of those movies that you enjoy it every time you watch it. The Fugitive, directed by Andrew Davis. Released in August of 1993 with a runtime of 2 hours and 10 minutes. Starring Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, and Jerome Crabb. Also starring Joe Pantoliano, Daniel Roebuck, L. Scott Caldwell, Tom Wood, and Andreas Katsoulis. With a production budget of $44 million, a domestic take of $183 million, a foreign take of $185 million, for a total of $368 million worldwide, giving them a profit of $328 million. $44 million investment gave them one heck of a return and us one incredible movie. So let's look at these characters. We'll start with Dr. Richard Kimble, a man on the run, desperate to clear his name and bring justice to his murdered wife. I describe him as level-headed, clear-thinking, forward-thinking, really quite smart, very good at guessing ahead, planning ahead, usually on the fly, making it up as he goes along and keeping a few steps ahead of everyone chasing him. And as smart as he is, he's just as compassionate. It's quite a few times where he gets himself into trouble because he hung around to do the right thing. It's the sort of lead character that the audience can really get behind and you feel for the guy. You know he's innocent and you really want to see him win. Keep away from the cops and most importantly, keep ahead of Gerard. And Gerard, played by Tommy Lee Jones, is one heck of a bloodhound. He's the ultimate hunter. He's on the case. He's in deep pursuit of Kimble and will not give up. He is the definition of relentless. And he's great fun to watch on screen. Grumpy and witty, two of my favourite aspects of Tommy Lee Jones's characters. He's mean, he's smart, and he will not give up. He doesn't believe it until he sees it. And he hasn't seen Kimble's body yet, so he doesn't believe he's gone. And all the while, Gerard is directing his team. His squad of cops, his squad of marshals, helping him hunt down Kimble. Cosmo, Newman, Paul, and Poole. And of the four, Cosmo and Newman get the most screen time. Cosmo is great. He's just as relentless as his boss. He's right there all the time. But he's sardonic and he's sarcastic and basically bicker and carry on at Gerard, who puts up with it because Cosmo's very good at what he does. And then you got Newman, the new kid. Well, they never say he's a new kid, but you get the feeling he's the least experienced and the youngest member of the team. And he just tries hard. He's really trying to do the best he can. He gets himself in a bit of trouble every now and then, but it pulls through. And at the end of it all, he gets a big pat on the head and a well done from Gerard, which is not bad. Since Gerard seems to be permanently grumpy, I call that a win. I love the team. I love Gerard's team. I would like to see much more of Gerard's team. It was just good value watching them all carry on and bicker and banter and run along behind Gerard, just trying to keep up, who in turn is just trying to keep up with Kimble. You've got our villain of the piece, the iconic one-armed man, that is Sykes. He is menacing, he is, well, kind of slimy. You don't like him the moment you meet him, you realise something's very off with this guy. I mean, aside from the fact that Kimble broke into his house and found all this evidence linking him to his murdered wife. He's a very effective, well, not as much the villain of the piece, but the threat of the piece. He's more the weapon to the main villain. The main villain, of course, being Dr. Nichols. I personally didn't like him from the beginning, just because of the way the character portrayed him. He just came across as a bit of a creep. But I didn't realise he was the absolute villain the very first time I saw this movie. So that was good. I just thought he was a bit of a jerk, not necessarily the bad guy. The way the story builds towards him, the way it all comes together, is quite excellent. Ultimately, the majority of these characters are really good, very strong. Excellent leads and they're brilliant support. To be honest, the villains, the enemy in this were the weakest part of the movie. I really didn't like the villains as much. I mean, but they were such an end note. They weren't really the focus of the movie. They were focus of the chase, I suppose, for Kimble, but you're more interested in Kimble versus Gerard than anything else. So whilst they weren't the greatest characters, they weren't really necessary as great characters. They just had to be there. And they were. Overall, I'll be giving the characters a 3.5, pretty much based on Kimble, Gerard, and Gerard's team. Just good. Very solid, very good characters. Now for story, and this is a good one. From the opening moments, it grips you, it grabs you, it tells an excellent story. It gives you a wonderful narrative of this guy's hunt for redemption, hunt for justice, and everyone else hunting him. It's an absolute pleasure to be taken along on this trip with Kimble, watching him outthink Gerard, watching him guess ahead, watching him come up with ways for him to go about finding the evidence he needs when he really has no leverage anymore. He's got really no other skill than his sharp, sharp mind. He's not an ex-cop, he's not an ex-soldier, he doesn't have any sort of special government access, special government clearance, there's no special agent training. He's just a really smart guy, dedicated and determined to survive, and determined to get justice. Does my voice sound croakier than usual? It sounds croakier to me. I think I'm getting a cold. And I was up all night running a D&D game, so that probably hasn't helped me either. And the story gives you so much. You've got everything from the moment he's arrested, his complete collapse of any defense in court, the fact that he goes to jail, and his breakout. It's from the breakout that everything really ramps up. And they make it as believably unbelievable as possible, mainly by having everyone chasing Kimble going, how is this possible? And that made the unbelievable, well, believable. You bought into it. You could set aside your disbelief because everyone else around him was also in disbelief. I also really enjoyed how they told the story by showing you what he was doing, not necessarily telling you what he was doing, or at least telling you after the fact. So you'd see shots of Kimble at the hospital researching this, picking up that, finding a way to disguise himself as a janitor, get into the hospital, get into the rooms, get the files he needs. At no stage was he talking to himself, or was someone else going, oh, he'll need to be doing this now. Like, you just saw it happen. And they kept cutting back to more sequences of Gerard following, never letting up, and always getting you the feeling this went over quite a few days, if not weeks. I'm not sure how long it was meant to have passed, but this could have been a month or two. They could have said this took a year and a half for the whole thing to play out. And, alright, you'd buy into it. And whilst the fight on the train and the confrontation of the bad guy and the big chase at the end with the laundry department of the Hilton and everything like that, all that was great. That was a really nice wrap up to the movie. But the favourite part, the best part, was personally where you're watching Gerard and Cosmo and the rest of the crew slowly picking up all the pieces that Kimble's leaving behind, all the clues, all the hints everywhere he's been. And they start getting drawn into his story. They start reinvestigating everything because they kind of have to, really, I suppose, in procedure. But as they're looking at it, they're going, wait a minute, this guy's onto something. And the closer they look, the more they realise that he is actually innocent. And they end up working on his case as well. And I really like that. There wasn't any sort of sudden reveal at the end, oh no, we believe you're innocent with no proof. You see, for good what? Third of the movie? You've got Gerard putting the pieces together, solving the puzzle from his end as well. The story weaved in and out and went all over the place, but kept within the confines of the setting. Didn't go completely crazy. Didn't wander off in any sort of weird stuff. Stayed true to what it was, stayed highly entertaining, and took you along for a great time. I am very happy to go and give this story a 3.5. Look and feel. Now, to begin with, unlike other movies that you look at them and you go, how did this cost that much to make? I mean, you don't see the value in what you're watching. Whereas in this one, I'm surprised at how little it cost for the quality of the film that we got. It looked real. It felt real. Even the most over-the-top action sequences, that train crash, that looked real, it looked authentic, and it looked excellent. Turns out that's because it was real. That was a real train crash that they caused, and they set a whole bunch of cameras up to watch it. They got one take, and they went for gold on that. And the sets that they were in never really looked like a set. They felt like a location, like they'd gone and hired out a building or using some room in a police station somewhere. It felt legitimate. It never ever pulled you out of the movie on the way it looked, the way it sounded, and the way everything else around it all felt. Speaking of sound, Foley work, fantastic. Never noticed anything in there. And the music was always on point. The music was never really super dramatic until a couple of times, but it always just lent the mood, always lent into the scenario, really complemented everything. And the only time you ever noticed it, honestly, was when you're admiring it, which is a good thing. And if you've been watching many of my videos, you know I love the tech, and especially 90s tech. I just have a thing for old school 90s high tech. Loved it. And in the FBI building, or the Marshall's offices, their tech, their recording studio and their audio stuff and all the goodies that they've got were just so much fun to watch in the background. I just love seeing that gear. And they never used it in such a way that you thought was unrealistic either. You bought into everything they did with their tech as well as everything else around them. And the acting supported all that. The acting in this is top notch. I mean, it's Ford and Jones. I mean, come on, they're good already. We all know that they're really good. It's a support cast that I was surprised at. There was no one that you didn't really care for. You're invested in every support character. You loved Gerard's crew, and he didn't like the other cops that were hunting him. You didn't like them from the start, but it wasn't because of any bad acting. It's because they really delivered well. All right, Sykes is a bit of a one-note character, a bit of a throwaway. Anyone could have done that. That's not the point. He was never really anything more than a plot piece anyway. All of Kimble's friends, the doctors and the nurses and the technicians at the hospital where he used to work that are supporting him and helping him if they can, they felt real. They didn't have much to do, but they definitely felt real. Look and feel, 3.25. It never pulls you out of the movie. It never disengages you. It never sets up anything that you're not expecting. It never makes you think, wait, when was this filmed? Why are they doing that then? No. The whole thing presented very, very nicely. 3.25. Script and dialogue. Now, this was a well-written script. This was tight, this was fast, this was clean. Everything felt natural, everything felt actual. From the original police investigation through to the Marshall's investigation, very nicely done. You bought into everything they were doing. Even though the cops were wrong at the start, you could see why, because you understood their procedure. They presented it well, and it looked like incredibly overwhelming evidence against him. And that's what it was meant to do, and that's what it did. The dialogue and development throughout the movie is what kept you in. There were some action sequences, there were some chases and some close calls, some really exciting stuff. Great example of this is when Kimble runs off in the St. Patrick's Day parade. There isn't a punch-up or a shootout or anything like that. It's just him drifting off into this parade, just changing what he's wearing, hiding amongst the crowd, and making his escape. And watching the cops right on his tail miss him by literally this much in a couple of seconds. It was good, it was tense, it was exciting, and it was just a parade. Harrison Ford's delivery, of course, was on point. He didn't really say as much as he did things. You're more watching his acting than listening to his lines, but his lines were good when he gave them. But of course, you cannot talk about the script and dialogue in this movie without Tommy Lee Jones. Without going into Gerard's great speeches, when he's giving everyone his address about how he wants every hen house, dog house, and outhouse searched within this perimeter, how he wants this done, he wants that done, where are my dogs, where are my lights, give me the helicopter, chase here, chase there, check this, get that file, interview him, double check that. The verbal cyclone that is Gerard is just so good. And the moments of compassion from Kimble, where he saves that kid's life in the hospital. Oh, and he stops to help the prison guard that got pulled out from under the train wreck. He didn't need to do that, but he did it. And that put Gerard right on his tail. But he took the risk, because he's really a nice guy. When Tommy Lee Jones plays a character who's grumpy, cranky, and frustrated, it is just the best thing. Is there a better role for him? I don't think so. As I said, the cat and mouse game around his hometown was fantastic to watch. And no matter how smart Kimble was, Gerard was not that far behind. Usually through a different method, came to a different conclusion, but was still right there. And that kept the tension high. The choreo for the fight scene on the train at the end of the movie, that wasn't that great. I'll admit that. And so some of the punch-ups and action stuff, not the best, but that's not the sort of movie it was. It wasn't meant to be like that. This wasn't Under Siege. This was a totally different sort of thing. And little things like that, you just gloss over. You just go with it because Kimble isn't an action star. He's the thinker, not the fighter, so you just roll with it. End of the day, I'm real happy to give this one a 3.5. This is clever, this is witty, this is just a dynamic movie to watch and listen to. You bought into everything and pretty much understood everything as it was played out for you. So yeah, 3.5. Easy done. Fun factor. Now this is interesting because, well, technically this movie isn't fun in the ha 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 we're having fun sort of way. This is a tense thriller about a really horrible thing that's happened to a guy and all the follow-up from that. So technically fun, doesn't quite fit. But still, I enjoyed myself immensely watching this movie. This was fun to watch, in as much as I am definitely going to watch it again, as I've already watched it many other times. It never ceases to entertain, to grip, and delight me, this movie. I really enjoy myself. Fun factor is another 3.5. Grumpy Tommy Lee Jones. Just too good. Final score, we add all these up and you get a 17.5. No, you don't. You get a 17.25. This is a good movie. This is a good time. And do I recommend it? Of course I do. This is just excellent viewing. If you haven't seen it, why not? Go watch it. Go watch it now. And if you pick it up on the Blu-ray, it's got some really nice commentaries on the back of how they made this movie. Largely on the fly. This excellent script was written on the run. So that's my review. I'd love to know what you think and what you actually thought of this movie. And have any of you actually seen the original TV show? I'm thinking about looking into that as well. It's a bit of a time sink, so I'd like to hear some other opinions on that. As usual, please like and subscribe, share my review around, and as always, I hope you're having a great week and should find some time to go and watch a movie. This one.